It's Wednesday, October 27. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. The National COVID-19 Vaccination Operationalization Task Force held a press conference at Jamaica House on Wednesday morning. We have more on the press conference in this report.
Chairman of the National COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force, Professor Gordon Shirley, says only a little over 11% of the Jamaican population has been vaccinated. He says his team has been working with the Health Ministry and other agencies to optimize the operational and logistical management of the government's COVID-19 response.
So what are the immediate problems? The immediate problems include the following. Supply continues to outstrip demand, resulting in suboptimal utilization. And there's an observation I want to make about this, which is that if we went back 6 to 8 weeks ago, we felt that the real problem was a supply problem because there was a groundswell of demand that was out there, and we felt if we just got the vaccines, everybody would get vaccinated. Now we have a relatively good level of vaccination, and the demand we recognize is not materializing. The persons who were willing to come forward have in fact largely been vaccinated, and now we are into those who are hesitant. And the surveys that have been done indicate that up to 65 to 70% of the population is hesitant. We also have determined that all vaccinations are not perceived as being equal. So when the Pfizer vaccine was introduced, there was a spurt of demand, which has tapered off ever since the Pfizer has become unavailable. Another major problem is that the frontline workers, excluding the JDF, have very low vaccination penetration rates. Public health nurses, for example, have a vaccination rate of less than 50%. A major problem is that schools are still out. This is a national crisis in education which continues to deepen with the threat of irreparable consequences for a whole generation of students. Many students in Jamaica have had reduced levels of instruction for over a year and a half. In some cases, no instruction for a year and a half. That is something that the nation is going to pay a price for down the road, and we have to resolve that very quickly.
Professor Shirley says some of the recommendations to facilitate an uptick in vaccination have already been actioned, such as the mobile vaccination drive and the launch of the drive to inoculate shut-ins.
We need to use the population data to target those persons who are over 60 years old and to leverage the National Health Fund's database to reach out to those who are in the comorbid cohorts. The over 60s make up 13.5% of the population, but they account for 73% of the COVID-related deaths. That's at 350% of the national average. Less than 35% of them are vaccinated with at least one dose. That has important consequences. Although we have the 35 is the largest cohort, the largest age cohort, the largest vaccination rate among age cohorts. In most countries, if we look at Ireland, they were early in getting that into the high 90s. They came out and got the vaccination. And that has been important in keeping their hospitalization rates at the lower end. If we begin any opening of the economy and we don't deal with the most vulnerable, we're going to continue to have a problem where our hospitals are crowded out by the presence of persons with COVID disease from this cohort.
Professor Shirley is also recommending the creation of a vaccine interchangeability policy.
The no-movement days, which were in effect to stem the increase in COVID-19 cases, have been discontinued. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement while speaking in the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
So there would no longer be a no-movement Sunday or a no-movement day. this new curfew will remain in effect until the 10th of December 2021. I will have some consultations with interest groups, and I will definitely call up the leader of the opposition early so that we can have a consensus as to what to do in Christmas.
According to the Prime Minister, all banned countries have been removed from Jamaica's travel list.
You will recall that the bans had been placed on those countries, most of them, if you recall, India and South America. Trinidad was on that list. But this was because of high infection rates and concerns about new variants. These countries have, however, Madam Speaker, controlled their outbreaks and have very high vaccination rates. If you look at all of them, their vaccination rates are higher than Jamaica's vaccination rate. So there's no, including Brazil. In fact, Brazil has a very high vaccination rate. So it doesn't make sense, Madam Speaker, that we're banning countries that have brought their infection rates under control and have higher vaccination rates than ours.
The limit for weddings and annual general meetings remain at 50 people. There is a 20 people limit for funerals and 15 for burials. 376 primary schools will resume face-to-face classes on November 8, 2021. That's the word from Prime Minister Andrew Holness. He noted that the move is not without risk of a possible COVID-19 spike, but it is being done to stem the learning loss affecting the nation's children.
Of the 376 schools, 191, or approximately 51%, are small primary schools with less than 100 students enrolled. A further breakdown of the 191 small schools show that 171 of the 191 schools are rural, remote schools with students living within close proximity to the school and requiring minimal transportation. Students in rural or remote communities are more affected by lack of internet or low bandwidth issues and are less likely to be consistently on the online platform.
According to Mr. Holness, schools are being ranked according to risk based on their amenities and classroom spaces.
The Ministry of Education will put out information about how schools will be ranked in terms of their risk for returning to face-to-face. We will look at the enrollment of the school's utilization rate, that is the number of students enrolled versus the number of spaces at the school, the number of COVID cases in the respective communities in which the schools are located, access to water for drinking and sanitation purposes, accessibility to technology, meaning internet connection, and the average distance traveled by students in commuting to and from school. So those are the factors that will give the risk profile of the school. Combined, these factors provide a total risk score that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has used to objectively determine the level of risk associated with each school and their consideration for approval for the resumption of face-to-face teaching and learning.
More information will be given through the Ministry of Education in the coming weeks. The Jamaican government is taking a strong stance against human trafficking. An important step is the Trafficking in Persons Prevention, Suppression and Punishment Amendment Act 2021. Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang brought the changes to Parliament on Tuesday.
Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang describes human trafficking as a cowardly, despicable but lucrative crime that targets the most vulnerable, women and children.
Globally, trafficking in persons generates approximately $150 billion in profits each year and is viewed as the third most lucrative criminal activity globally.
Dr. Chang says the United Nations has reported an increase in incidents of human trafficking since the start of the pandemic.
The share of children among detected trafficking victims has tripled, while the share of boys has increased 5 times in the past 15 years. Given the protracted impact of COVID-19, a growing number of people are experiencing economic and social vulnerabilities that has increased their risk of falling prey to human traffickers.
The original anti-human trafficking legislation was passed in 2007, and according to the Security Minister, these proposed amendments will strengthen those statutes already established.
The amendment we proposed in the Trafficking in Persons Prevention, Suppression and Punishment Act 2021 are based on the need to create a stronger anti-human trafficking regime that discourages, disincentives, and promulgates deterrence of the offenders and the recidivists. Given the global and lucrative nature of human trafficking and its imminent threat to our people, the government has taken the decision to proceed with amendments to the Act to remove the option of fines as a penalty for certain offences that are egregious in nature. Additionally, the Amendment Act creates a provision that empowers the Minister by order, subject to affirmative resolution, to make amendments to monetary penalties in the Act.
Opposition leader Mark Golding says he supports the amendments in theory, but there is a concern.
15 is to do with obstructing a law officer in their duties under the Act. It's not a trafficking offense, and so that fine is not being removed. That fine is just being increased. But these trafficking offenses are where there is now going to be an inconsistency. So if you have a trafficking organization that is incorporated, the principals involved can hide behind that corporate veil so as to potentially be fined rather than suffer the penalties of imprisonment that would apply were they not incorporated. And I'm not understanding the logic of that. And so I would just ask the minister to consider adding section 5(1) to clause 2, so that it would say section 4 of the Principal Act is amended in subsections 6, 7, 8, and 8A, comma, and section 5 is amended in subsection 1 by deleting the words listed in the clause. And that would align the treatment of trafficking offenses, whether you are acting as a criminal individual or you are an individual operating a criminal body corporate.
In light of the recommendation, the debate was suspended until the next sitting of the lower house. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
All traces of human existence underwater, which are 100 years old or more, are protected by the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. Jamaica is hoping to get World Heritage Inscription for the sunken city of Port Royal, which is one of only 3 such sites in the world. The others are in Greece and Italy. Archaeologists and divers are currently in Port Royal, digitally mapping a detailed and accurate map of Port Royal's sunken city. Marlon Samuels has more in this report.
An earthquake estimated at a 7.5 magnitude hit Port Royal on June 7, 1692. Described in the 1600s as the richest and wickedest city in the world, Port Royal was built on sand. The town suffered instantly from liquefaction. Residents and buildings were swallowed up by the earth. In October 2021, 329 years later, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust is conducting a Heritage Impact Assessment of Port Royal's sunken city.
Here it goes.
Okay.
15.
15.
18.
18.
Q. 03. 04. 587. 43. 5.
1984. 43. 5.
The findings are encouraging.
We have collaborated with Dr. Kota from Japan and Dr. Roberto from Mexico, and we're doing a photogrammetry of the sunken city. For me, the technology that we are using here today is rather fascinating to me, because one of the things it has revealed to us is that previous archaeological works done on the sunken city have indicated that the Fort James was somewhat demolished in the earthquake. What this technology, photogrammetry, is revealing to us now is that Fort James is actually intact.
Okay, so everybody's ready? Come on, get close to this bike. Oh, there's lots of music.
The digital mapping shows walls, a fort, streets, and many other artifacts covered in sand and silt sitting on the ocean floor.
We are now able to see the house structures. There are about 5 buildings under there. There's a specific building with about 6 rooms. I think that was building 3. We're able to see the flooring structures, the brick walls coming up about like 4 or 5 bricks on top of each other. You can clearly see the floors. In other areas too, where there is the fort, what was said to be mostly demolished during the earthquake, it's you can see the big boulders and also the shape of the fort. It's very fascinating.
To actually see it for myself, to dive and to see the structures, to see the bricks and all of that right in front of your face, it's a good feeling. Not many persons can say that, especially Jamaicans. We have not had at the Heritage Trust, and this is probably history in the making, that we have so many divers now on staff that are able to monitor the site, help in its preservation, so it's a good feeling for us.
Now, a quiet fishing village, Port Royal is on track to be named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The hope is that the sunken city will form a part of a historical trail that will include the museum, the church, and dig sites. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Visitors to Jamaica will receive a brighter, larger-than-life welcome once they leave the Norman Manley International Airport heading to Kingston. Designed to hold and dispense cement, a concrete silo located at the cement company in Rockford, Kingston, is being used as a canvas. The art project was devised by Jamaica's Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport in collaboration with the Mexican Embassy.
This is part of our Paint Up Your Creative Space, being led by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. So what I really want to say is that during this pandemic, we have been able to create work for our creative people by doing these murals. And I want to thank Cement Company for coming on board and for making available their silo as a canvas. And this landmark painting, the largest in Jamaica, will be used as a symbol of collaboration of countries working together and creative people working together.
Bold, saturated colors are being used to transform the silo, which is 37.7 meters wide and 29.7 meters high, into a giant work of art. The artwork is intended to promote community pride as well as the twinning of two distinct cultures. The images on the sides of the silo memorializes shared aspects of the cultural mores of both Jamaica and Mexico.
This really means a lot for us. It means a lot. First of all, it's a beautiful painting, as you can see. It's a beautiful project. But more than that, for us, it symbolizes the merge, the union between two cultures. Of course, our beloved Jamaican culture in this beautiful country, together with our country from the company Mexico.
The mural is the largest approved by the Ministry of Culture and will be a landmark for the area. On completion, the mural covering the sides of the silo at the cement company is expected to attract visitors to Kingston as well as locals. It is a part of the Jamaica Creative Paint Up Your Creative Space mural project, which began in December 2019. Since then, several murals have been completed in a number of areas, including the complex of the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica in Halfway Tree, Kingston. We now get the latest market updates in this quick business report from Gabriel Thompson.
In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, October 26, the US dollar sold for an average $155.33. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $125.39. The pound sterling traded for $212.67, and the euro sold for an average $182.90. In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 1,042 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 96 stocks, of which 44 advanced, 38 declined, and 14 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 79 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, Carreras Limited, and Fontana Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with over 3.5 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 1.7 million units, and Radio Jamaica Limited with over 1.6 million units. In market data for oil, prices fell on Wednesday after industry data showed crude oil stockpiles rose more than expected and fuel inventories increased unexpectedly last week in the United States, the world's largest oil consumer. Brent crude futures fell $1.01 to $85.39 a barrel after closing the highest 11 in 7 years on Tuesday. West Texas Intermediate futures were down $1.19 at $83.46 a barrel. Both benchmarks remain near multi-year highs and closed on Friday with a 7th straight weekly gain as major producers hold back supply and demand rebounds after the easing of pandemic restrictions. And with that, we close this Wednesday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
If you have a tooth that is decayed or seriously infected, you might think there's nothing to do but pull it out. But you don't have to. You can protect the tooth by doing a root canal. In this Living Healthy report, Dr. Heather Lawson-Myers of Ligonier Family Dental explains what it means to get a root canal.
Hi, I'm HD. Welcome to another episode of HD's Jazz. Today we're going to talk about roots. I love this tree. It gives you a sneak peek into what's usually hidden. A very intricate root structure. Let me show you. The nerve and the blood vessels intertwine just as intricately in the roots of your teeth. Now, it works very well to nourish the tooth. So when everything is working well, that's great. But if bacteria gets in here, it all has to be cleaned out. And the process of cleaning that out and filling it back with some man-made material is known as endodontic treatment or root canal. Let me tell you something. Don't tell anybody you need a root canal. All the horror stories are going to come out of the closet. But the truth is, a well-handled root canal can be done with literally no pain. So make sure you find a good endodontist to perform your root canal treatment. What are the reasons, though, that we may need a root canal? A tooth that is badly decayed? Or you may have had trauma to the mouth. I got hit in the mouth at age 8, and it wasn't until I was in college that the tooth started acting up and I needed to have a root canal. But you know what? You may not have taken good care of your teeth, and you may have ended up needing a root canal, but a root canal is a second lease on life. It can stand up for a good long time. You just need to take good care of it. It will have to be reinforced with a crown to make sure that it's properly protected. So, great brushing and flossing, but if things happen, there's always a root canal with a new lease on life. So you see, healthy roots, a good foundation. Listen, check us out now on FYI, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. See you the next time on HD's Jazz.
In regional news, Trinidad and Tobago's Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, says a new approach is being taken to address the hundreds of land slippages that occur annually across that island. He addressed that and other infrastructural issues at a press conference on Tuesday. Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell has more in this report.
At present, there are more than 400 critical landslips across the country. This from Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan, who says his ministry is taking a different approach to addressing these issues as they are known to mostly occur during the rainy season.
The Director of Highways have introduced this new program to take charge of landslips at an early stage, because if we can do that, then we will minimize some of the expensive costs going forward.
The Director of the Highways Division, Anil Mohan Singh, says the landslip prevention program includes drainage intervention and early stabilization of slopes.
That is a focus of the Highways Division in this current fiscal year, to undertake inspections and do this landslip prevention program comprising of early interventions and so on.
Meanwhile, Minister Sinanan notes that recently there have been protests in South Trinidad accusing the Ministry of Discrimination in its prioritizing of landslip repair.
That there is no geographical discrimination taking place. In that program, he indicated at present of the 68 landslips being designed now, 76% is from the central and southern range. So if there was discrimination, then you would have found that 76% of the landslips might have been in the north.
Tuesday's press conference was held at the ministry's Port of Spain headquarters. Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell, TTT News.
And in sports, we bowl off with cricket. The West Indies suffered their second straight defeat at the T20 World Cup on Tuesday. They lost by 8 wickets to South Africa in Dubai. The Caribbean side will square off against Bangladesh on Friday. And there has been no high school football since 2019 due to COVID-19. Now, organizers are looking at a November 12 or 13 start for this year's competition, following a green light from the government. The Intersecondary Schools Sports Association, ISSA, has indicated that 53 schools are expected to take part in the Da Costa Cup competition and 37 in the Manning Cup competition. Schoolboy footballers are being given time to get vaccinated against the coronavirus COVID-19 so that they can participate in the upcoming competition. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.